welcome to recruiting, retaining, and maintaining staff. My name is Grady Adkins. I am the executive pastor here at Cormdale Bible Church, and just a very quick background of myself. I came to this church, I joined the staff 13 years ago, almost 13 years ago. I was in the military as an infantry and logistics officer, did that for a decade. Then I came, that's what brought us to this area. There's a military installation here. Fell in love with this church, attended here for 2 years, and fell in love with this church and felt my call into full-time ministry. So I left the military and started here as the children's pastor. And did that for a few years, then a little bit later became the family ministries pastor, and then stepped into the executive pastor role 6 years ago, and have been doing that. In addition to that, we started a K through 12 school. We are in our 5th school year, so I'm the head of school for our school as well. And so it has been a journey. It has been such a blessing. And I'm so thankful that I'm here. As I was creating this, just kind of thinking through everything about what recruiting, retaining, and maintaining staff means and what it is, and I was putting everything together, I thought I needed to retitle it to Everything I Should Be Doing That I'm Not. Like, for real, we all know the things, right, to encourage and help our staff. And every time we sit down and start working through that and we dedicate ourselves to that, it just becomes clearer and clearer of how much more work I need to do personally. So this has been a really good gut check for me as well in that. And really what it comes down to is creating a desirable culture. That's really the crux of what I'm going to be talking about today is creating that desirable culture, because your culture defines who you are, what type of people you attract, and how long they stay on your team. And there's a difference between your Sunday church culture versus your weekday staff culture. Obviously, I'm not saying you should be one way on the weekend and a different way throughout the week. That's not what I'm saying at all. But rather, defining who you are and what you're about looks a little bit different for your work environment versus your overall church. Let me explain just a little bit more on that. Most churches have clear values that are stated. Maybe you call them pillars, core values, whatever that is. That's not what I'm talking about here. For instance, strategic church planting. That's one of our core values. You can see that on the wall in our lobby. You can see it everywhere that you go. That is one of our church's core values. But strategic church planting does not define our everyday culture in how we operate within our staff. So we need specific work environment values that are different than our overall church core values. And this gets into the nitty-gritty of the operations of your church. And it will ultimately define your culture, the type of staff that you attract, and how long they stay. We haven't always had staff values. We do now. It was about 6 years ago, right, as I was coming on to this position as executive pastor. It's actually just a little before. We realized we needed some staff values. So our staff, we did an off-site retreat. We went out, the leadership team that consisted of all of our directors and pastors at that time, we went off-site. We stayed at a hotel in a different town from here just so we could take 2 days and really get at the core of who we are. And what was really interesting coming out of that, I'm not kidding. There were tears involved those 2 days. There were conversations that were had that people had kept down deep in them for a long time. And as a result of that, once we actually defined who we are and who we were as a staff, 5 people left our staff. But the good news is they realized this wasn't the bus they were supposed to be on. And they realized in order for them to be happy and for us to be happy, a division was needed, a split was needed. And that's what happened. It was really interesting that way. So I know you're not going to be able to see this slide. This is what I'm talking about, though, the difference of core values for a church versus staff values for your everyday work. This is what we came up with: love, trust, joy, grace, and excellence. So this is the culture that our church wanted to define for our staff. And then we put a definition by each one of those values. And then I know you can't read all the little words down here, but we have behaviors, characteristics, mannerisms that help define what that really means in practice. So kind of those 3 aspects of the staff values I would highly recommend that you doing for your church. If this is something, I have all these kinds of documents. If this is something you're interested in, I can just see me afterwards. I'll get your name and all of that, and I can send this stuff to you. But you have to first define who you are in order to know what type of culture you are creating. This is who we were, and this is who we are. So once you define that, then you have to ask, who do I hire? What type of people do you want to attract and hire and have a part of your staff? These are the things that we look for in everyone that we hire. Someone who's teachable, trainable, available, and fits within your culture. Teachable, meaning someone who has that willingness to learn, that they're teachable, and they like that, and they want that, and they want to grow. Someone who's trainable, a little bit of a nuance here from being teachable, but someone who's really willing to take feedback, take it well, and then grow with that. That's a trainable person. It's not just that desire to learn, but it's that second phase of that, of being able to receive that and then grow from it. Someone who's available, that does not mean someone who doesn't have a job right now and they're just available to come there right now. That's amazing when that happens if everything else lines up. But what available means is they're willing to, maybe if they have a job or they're in something, but they feel the Lord calling them to your church, they're available and they make themselves available to come. And then someone who fits within your culture. This kind of goes back to the question of, is it okay to not hire someone based on chemistry alone? If someone comes that you interview that has the pedigree that you're looking for, all the schooling, the right schools, the right experience, all the things that you're looking for, but then when you meet with them and you talk with them, that chemistry's not there. What do you think? Is that an okay reason not to hire them? Yeah, absolutely. That's a great reason not to hire them. And that means it's going to be someone who fits within your culture. When hiring, this is a personal philosophy, one that we have really tried to live by here, is if possible, it's always best to hire from within your church. It's not always possible, I get that, but it is always best. Those who last the longest typically come from within your church because they are already committed. They already know who you are, and it takes away all of that. And not only do they know you, you know them. And that goes back to, I would take someone who's teachable, trainable, and available over someone who has all the right schooling and all the right other things, because they are known and they want to be a part of what you're doing. So you link arms with them. Everything else, you can train them. Everything else, you can teach them, and they will grow. Couple of statistics. We have 17 people at the director level on our staff right now. 17, that's directors, pastors, that level. Only 2 out of the 17 came outside of our church. Everyone else has come from within. Those 2 that came from outside of our church actually came from within the collective, from either recommended from another church in the collective that didn't have something for them at that time, or actually leadership of the collective knew of someone and pushed them our way, and it's worked out great. We have 17 on our support staff, so administrative assistants, coordinators, facilities, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that way. Only 1 currently came from outside of our church, and that was a very specialized positions in that graphics department that you're looking for those specialized skills. We have 2 residents, pastoral residents right now, that we just started this new program. Both of them came from within our church, so to speak. One grew up here. They both just came from college. We're kind of a college town, but we don't have a big, good college here. So they both have been at college away for the last 4 years. One of them grew up here in our church. The other one, while he was in college in Iowa City, about 45 minutes an hour from here, he interned in our church over the summer. So those 2 also came from within. Here's a hot one that, I don't know, we have really changed on. What do you think about spouses working at your church? We had, at the beginning, we had a hard and fast rule. No spouses. We would not hire spouses, because if 1 goes, 2 go. There's some risk involved in that. We have completely changed over the last 6 years. And I would say that even though hiring a spouse is twice the risk, it's quadruple the reward. And you have to be very intentional with that, in vetting that. And it's not just vetting and being intentional and understanding the risks up front during the hiring process. It's ongoing checkups throughout the year and as the years go on. And checkups with their marriage and their relationship as well. Because again, if 1 goes bad, 2 are going bad with you, with that way. We've been doing that now for 6 years. That change came when I stepped on as the executive pastor. Up until that point, we didn't have any of our any pastors on staff their spouses did not work here. We have flip-flopped, and now we are out of our 13 pastoral staff, 10 spouses work here. And so far, it's been amazing. It's been really good, and we have not had any issues with that. 6 years, check back with me in 6 more years, and I'll let you know what that looks like. When hiring, yes?
Would you mind describing some of that? You said quadruple the reward.
Yeah.
In terms of like commitment, buy-in,
Yes.
What would you describe?
Yes, that's exactly right. So they know your DNA more than anyone else. They know who you are, and they know what their spouse has been doing and been a part of. And not only do they know that, they have lived it firsthand, the good things and the bad things. Because what do we do as pastors? We go home, we will talk with our spouse. And so they know what they're getting into. Not only that, so that's you know you're getting someone who's fully committed when they want to come forward and work as well. But then now you have someone who, when they go home in the evening, they can talk about not only the negative things and help each other out that way, but also the great things that's going on and the ideas. And then you have multiple ministries that are really willing to come together to work together even more, that more so than maybe a silo ministry. It really helps bringing all those ministries together that way. So those are the things that I would say about quadruple award with double the risk. So yeah, does that answer that?
It does. Guys, a follow-up?
Yeah.
Have you seen an impact, just like having spouses together on campus? Like, you feel like it's changed, even somehow staff feels like that it's pushing any more like family direction, or you know what I mean? Like you have husbands and wives together.
Yeah.
Does it feel more family-ish, or is that not?
It does, and we've seen kids around here more. The difficult part is you have to be up front. Are you going to allow kids to be here during the day and in the work environment, or are you not? And you need to come up with and know those things. And if not, you might have to be willing to help them out a little bit with that. Those are all the things you have to work through. But I still say working through those things is worth it. Yeah.
For the few that didn't come from within your church, do you ask them to attend your church or require them to attend
Yes.
your church?
Yes, so not only attend, but everyone who works on staff, whether it's a facilities person who's cleaning on the weekends just part-time, or a full-time pastor, everyone has to be a member of our church. All right, so when you're hiring, the use of a hiring or recruiting firm, I would say do everything you can not to use them. You know, the Vanderblumens, the Shepherd staff, all of those places that are out there. They're great, and I know that sometimes you have to use them. But I would do everything you can not to use them. When you do use them, and we have done that in the past, hire slowly. When you're hiring from within, you can typically hire a little more quickly, but when you're hiring from without, hire very slowly. Vet. Just in our church here, anyone whom we have hired through a firm has not stayed in our church and on our staff. Currently, we have 0 on our staff who've been hired through a firm. The shortest person longevity that we used to hire through a firm was 3 days. And their spouse never came. So that was an issue. So I would do everything that you can to avoid that. So who are you looking for? You need to have that defined as well, kind of the portrait of a candidate. I would say there's some characteristics that are the same no matter what position that you're hiring for. Some of those that we're looking for in people, it really goes back to your core values and your staff values as well. But some of those that no matter the position that are the same, we look for people who have joy, a lot of joy, an eye for excellence, a high work ethic, a desire to be teachable, a passion for ministry and the specific position that they're applying for. If they're just coming in to hopefully do something else down the road in the ministry, it causes frustration on all sides. So a passion for ministry and that specific position. They're quick to forgive and let go, and they are honest as well as trusting. So those are no matter the position, those are things that we look for in people that we're hiring. Specific skills, there's a difference, in the different positions. For instance, an administrative assistant, someone who's detail-oriented, task-driven versus relationally driven, if you understand what I mean by that. A pastor is probably a little bit more, depending on what type of pastor, a little bit more relationally driven, loves to be out there, could care less about the tasks that have to be done for some, versus task-driven that just really, it fuels them to check things off a list, to get it done. Get this done, let me move on to the next thing, to the next thing. That's what we look for in our administrative assistants. If you have someone like a counseling pastor, a biblical soul care pastor, maybe someone who is more equipped for those one-on-one or small group settings versus a massive congregational setting. A worship pastor, they specific skill sets there that are obvious. An executive pastor, again, maybe a little bit more task-oriented, someone who likes schedules and rules and really just taking the fun out of everything. That's right. So that's who you're looking for.
Grady,
Yes.
do you use any tools to help you identify that in a person?
Identify,
The kind of person they are?
yes, sure.
Genius or anything like that?
We don't go down that route. We have a pretty robust application that they have to fill out, and then we vet that way. We have used in the past, we're not currently using, Integris Leadership, and they have a profile, it's called, that tells you all about their personality and all of those things and all their tendencies. And so we've used that a lot in the past. And we actually require that for all of our pastors who are coming on staff to go through that. But the support staff we do not require for that. So how do you keep your staff? Be honest with them up front before you hire them. They need to know the culture that they're about to step into. If you are a culture that works 50 hours a week minimum in the office, they need to know that. Ask them what their expectations are. Do they think they're going to be able to come in, work from home a lot if that's not your culture? Or do they think that you just come in, they're going to come in and maybe a support staff that everybody just comes in and prays all day long? Whatever their expectation is, find that out and be honest and upfront with them. You have to paint the correct picture of what your workplace environment is like in order to keep longevity. So be honest with them up front, and secondly, give generously when you can and where you can. Pay your staff well and don't nickel and dime them. Give generously when you can. Listen, if you can't afford the position, don't hire it. If you hope to hire someone full-time down the road and tell them, come on part-time right now, but in 6 months, man, I hope we're going to be there and we can bring you on full-time, don't do that. Don't do that until you can pay them for the full-time, because 6 months down the road, you may not be able to hire them full-time, and it's going to create that frustration on both sides as well. So don't hire it if you can't afford it. With compensation in regard to that, be competitive. There's organizations out there nationally that you can compare compensation with, such as the Leadership Network, Church Salary, Ministry Pay, Vanderblumen, some of those that are out there. You can buy their membership with them and compare how you're doing and paying your staff. I do that every year this time of year as we're looking to budgets for next year. But be competitive. Health benefits, give generously if you can. Especially in today's world, health benefits are extremely expensive. So just as an example, if you will use just an even number out there, $50,000. If you're going to pay someone $50,000 to come onto your staff, but then have them be a part of your health plan, but they have to pay for that health plan, you're probably looking on average a $15,000 buy-in for that they're going to have to pay. So you just reduce their salary down to $35,000. So hire a person when you can afford them, and include that benefits package with them. Whether they're a single person, it might be a little bit less, or a family with children, it's going to be a little bit more. But work that into your budget and pay for that. We charge our employees, because I believe it's law, you have to charge something. So we charge $1 a month for our employees' health benefits. Now there is a deductible. We're on a plan that it's a $2,000 deductible for a single individual and $4,000 for a family. We're on an HSA plan, and as we hire new people, pastors, we will sometimes give into their HSA plan to help bolster that a little bit as well. Yeah.
How do you set the culture with the congregation for them to give generously for the staff as well?
So that's a good question. So Rob, our senior pastor, he, whenever he can, he talks really well about our staff and thanks them for their giving, and that spurs them on all the more. We don't get into the specifics with our congregation at all of what each pastor makes or anything like that. We have, a yearly business meeting that 5 people come to, because that's how many care about it. No, that's an exaggeration. There's more that come to that. But we give the overall compensation and salary. We don't go down to the individuals, and they know that we typically average about 55, depending on the year, to 65% of our budget goes to compensation, and that's salary, health benefits, all of it. And 55% of our overall budget goes to the compensation. Yeah, that's kind of the number we strive to hit. And that's a good average, nationwide average as well. Giving generously at your church when, if you're holding events, if you can afford, give those events to your staff for free, or Bible studies, pay for their books. If it's a large thing like a week-long camp or whatever, and it's, I don't know, $500, whatever it is, a missions trip, and you can't afford to give some, right? Set something aside in your budget, plan that out, give some. Don't nickel and dime your staff. That's where I go back to that. And then time off, give generously. That is, as long as the capacity is there for time off, let them have time off. That's an easy benefit that every church can afford, and it will pay dividends in the end. We have specific vacation days that are allotted for the year. Our sick days, we give unlimited sick days, but we kind of have this, if someone has hit 10 sick days, then we'll have a conversation. But with the unlimited sick days, it really shows that we trust our staff, and we do. We trust our staff, and that's the culture we want to live and breathe every day. And then we have all the other days as well. Here's the thing, 9 out of 10 managers will say that money is the way to retain employees. I don't buy that, right? We retain and maintain staff by creating that desirable culture that doesn't stem from money. So let me talk quickly here about a few ways, a few different areas that you can create a desirable culture. First of all is a culture of clarity. Create a culture of clarity in your staff. Clarity is a leader's best friend. So define your vision, direction, and expectations for your staff. And like when I don't have clarity of what I'm supposed to be doing, my anxiety increases greatly. Young couples know this for sure, right? Think about a young couple who's just starting to date and they haven't really gotten to that point where they have done the DTR, the define the relationship. So they're sitting next to each other and one of them's like, I'm going to move my pinky a little bit and maybe try to touch their pinky and we'll see what happens, right? They don't know what's going to happen and there's a little bit of anxiety going on there. And then they touch that pinky and then everything happens from there. And then next thing you know, they're holding hands and then having babies. But so they have to define the relationship. And it's the same with our staff as well. Clarity, because clarity is the uncertainty killer. Like, it kills the question, am I doing the right thing? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? It kills the thought, boy, I hope this works. It kills the idea that they may have, if you don't care what I'm doing because you haven't asked me about it or given me expectations, then I don't care how well I'm going to do this. It kills all of that. Clarity is the uncertainty killer. So define the degree we want them to do a task and the deadline for which it must be completed. And I know as leaders, sometimes it's difficult to be like, okay, no, you got to do this, and I need it done by this time. That's good. That's a good thing. It kills all the uncertainty, and it makes anxiety go out the window on that. So create a culture of clarity. Secondly, create a culture of nurturing others. So what is that nurturing culture? Nurturing is meeting the needs of individuals and promoting their growth and development. This is why it's important for leaders to nurture their staff, because it lowers anxiety, and when you do that, it increases performance. It affirms their God-given skills and increases their confidence. So there's a simple method that I like to put into practice, try to put into practice every single day with our staff, and it's called the 3 A's. This is how you can put nurturing into practice in your church, in your staff, every single day, definitely every single week. Acknowledge, appreciate, and affirm. The 3 A's. Acknowledge, simply saying hello to someone. Acknowledge they're there. If you're walking in the morning and headed to your office and you're walking by some of the people that you work with and you're just on your phone because you don't want to get into a conversation with them because you know everything the day is going to bring you and everything that's on your list of things that you have to get done, and you forget to acknowledge them, you've put the task over the person and you've diminished who they are and who they think that you think they are. No one wants to be invisible. Simply acknowledge by saying hello. When we don't acknowledge someone, our brains will fill the gap with something. Like, are they mad at me? Why didn't they say hello to me? What have I done? Do they like me? Or worse yet, why am I even here? I need to go find a new job. Acknowledging that person and whenever you're going by, that kills all of that. Secondly, appreciate. Massive reason people leave their job is a lack of appreciation. And I've heard people give some pushback on this a little bit, like, why do I want to appreciate or thank someone for what I'm paying them to do, just to do their job? Well, think about this in terms of sports, right? We live here in kind of Packers and Chiefs territory. It's kind of split evenly. I'm going to go with Chiefs today. So Patrick Mahomes, I'll use as our example today. What do fans do? man, they appreciate him. They buy his shirts. They hold up signs. They give him their kids so he'll sign their forehead, whatever. But they show appreciation because he's simply doing his job. Why don't we do that in our church as well, with our staff? When was the last time you thanked your admin for the mundane task that they do? When was the last time we thanked your senior pastor for the weekly grind of sermon prep? When was the last time you told your worship pastor they sounded incredible or you loved the worship set that they put together? Thank them, appreciate them for doing their job. Think of someone right now that you know you need to thank. Maybe that you just know you need to thank and you haven't said that to them. When you leave here, send them a text. Before you go on out to dinner, before you go anywhere else, send them a text and tell them thank you right now. All right, do that before you head on out to your next thing. And then lastly, affirm. Affirm, the root word of that is firm, which is to make something solid. And that's the goal, to encourage someone to keep up the good work so that they are a solid fixture and there for the long haul. Because what gets recognized gets repeated. What gets recognized gets repeated. If you want to grow your culture, then affirm the people in your culture. Matthew 3:16 and 17, Jesus was baptized. And when Jesus comes up out of the water, a voice from heaven says, "This is my son, and with him I am well pleased." If God the Father feels compelled to affirm God the Son, what does that tell us about affirmation? It's pretty stinking important. Going back to that text, it's important. May seem like a little thing, but no kidding. Text someone before you move on to your next thing what you love about them, what you appreciate about them, what you thank the Lord for why they're in your life. Some people are more naturally encouraging, sympathetic, affectionate, connected. Others are more independent, individualistic, less caught up in emotions. All that means, not one is not better than the other by any means. All that means is if you're lower, more individualistic, independent, not caught up in emotions like I am, you need to be aware of that and intentionally utilize one of those 3 A's in your life every single day. Not the acknowledge. That you should be doing multiple times today, right? That one doesn't count in that. So appreciate or affirm someone every single day. This will help create relational equity in your life. When you do these things, relational equity, super important, because as leaders, there will come a time when we need to call people to action. And when that time arises, we need to have that relational equity, which builds 3 critical capacities in their life and in your life. The capacity for truth, the capacity for pace, and the capacity for conflict. The capacity for truth, we can lean in to difficulty because of that relational equity. We can speak the truth because that relational equity is already built and already there. The capacity for pace, we can move quicker and not have to coddle when we need to make a decision. Because relational trust is already there. And then the capacity for conflict, when there's a problem, the chances of us persisting through that problem and resolving it are much greater, and conflict is much shorter when we have that relational equity. And these all stem from having a culture of nurturing others. Thirdly, create a culture of empowerment. Empowerment is a funny thing. It's one of the most talked about and least understood concepts in leadership. Empowerment is the appropriate relationship between skill level and permission level. An empowered person has the permission level that equates to their skill level. Now, let me show you this empowerment grid. So the vertical line there, that's your skill line. How much skill do you have? Low skill, does that person have a low skill, or are they at the top, the high skill? The horizontal line on the bottom, that's the permission that you have given them. Do you give them low permission, or do you give them high permission? What you want to do in empowerment is try to get this diagonal line to meet at all levels across the board. So that's the dotted lines meeting there in the middle. So here's what I mean. If a person has low skill, so on the left-hand side over there, they're low, right? Their skill level, they're new, they don't know what they're doing, but they have a ton of permission. You've given them all the permission to do everything, maybe even given them an expectation. How does that make them feel? It makes them feel overwhelmed or anxious. Or looking at the opposite side, if they're super high skill on that vertical line, but you have given them almost no permission, then they're going to feel frustrated or like they're micromanaged. So we need to do our best to make sure that diagonal line, we're following that diagonal line all the more. So how much we give for others to do depends on the risk level you're willing to take. But here's the deal. We're all here in this room right now because someone took a risk on us. So it's good to take the risk. Let me encourage you to do so and help them grow, because growth is the goal for sure. There's an important leadership mantra to remember, and that is stop doing for others what they can and should do for themselves. Stop doing for others what they can and they should do for themselves, which brings up another question. How do I know what permission I should give to others? This is the can I, should I grid. Can I, should I? So should I do something on the left side? Can I do something? That's can is looking at your skill level. Should is looking at priorities or permission level. Is it a high priority item that you should be doing or someone else should be doing? So for skill, we'll start in the top left there. If someone should do it and they can do it, they have the skill, then yes, absolutely, go do that. If someone can't do it, they don't have the skill, but they should do it, then they need to grow. You need to teach them. You need to train them so that they can do that and move that over to the can and should. If someone can't do it and they shouldn't do it, then no, don't give that for someone to do and make sure they're not doing that thing. But if they shouldn't do it, but they have the skill level to do it, whoa. This is the lower quadrant of empowerment. You need to give that to other people to do. This bottom left quadrant is talking about your priorities. So you have the skill to do it, but you shouldn't do it. Someone else should do that. That should not be eating up your time. You have more, better, and important things to do at your level that you work. Give that to someone else. Empower them to do that. And there's resistance to that, but it's faster if I do it myself. Think, who am I robbing out of a growth opportunity to grow in this way? Maybe you need to clarify your own priorities. And before you jump in and do it, ask, who else can you empower to do that? Then give them the permission to do it and delegate the authority to do that. So as I was talking about this diagonal line, here's kind of the levels of empowerment along that line as you're going up. So we'll take them kind of lower half and upper half. So all of these are balanced, right? So it's on that diagonal line. So they have low skill, but the same amount of permission. Okay, let's wait, have that person wait until they're told or asked to do that. But they can do that. A little bit higher, have them ask before. So a little bit more skill, a little bit more permission. They're asking, hey, can I do this? Can I do this? Yeah, do that. Or maybe, no, not yet, right? Let's wait a little bit. The next level up, still in that lower half, this is when you really start to recommend, hey, why don't you start thinking about doing this? And you're starting to slowly help teach them and grow them in that area. And then we're in the do-its, in the upper quadrants here, where the lower end of it, it's, yes, go ahead and do this. You have the permission, you have the skill, but after you do this, as you're still learning, report back to me immediately. Let's talk about how that went. The next one up is do it and report routinely, maybe in a once a week meeting or once every 2 week meeting. And then the upper, you have all the skill, all the permission, just do that. The most encouraging thing about empowerment is it frees you up to do, to pursue your highest and best as a leader. A leader who's overly dominant is busy doing things that others should be doing. A leader who's giving too much permission is allowing the organization to drift, and eventually it'll take the team of mission by draining resources, time, and human capital. That's kind of the idea of empowerment. Give it away. Know what you can give away, what you should give away, or what you should keep for yourself, depending on that priority, and empower others to do it so that you can help grow your team and create that culture of empowerment. Next, create a culture of feedback. This one's tough. How often do we really go out and seek valuable feedback versus we go out and seek feedback with the intent of just finding affirmation for ourselves? That's a tough one. I knew a pastor who had something he incorporated called the parking lot huddle. It wasn't a meeting, but after service, they'd have a quick gathering of leaders who had a role in the morning service. And they asked, if we had this again, to do again tomorrow, what are a couple of things we could do better, faster, easier, and cheaper? You can call it a change meeting. What can we change for tomorrow or our next service to make it better? What could we do differently? The after action review of an event or something like that is so critical because it's fresh and it's raw and it's on everyone's mind right then. It's not looking to solve anything right then and there by any means, but it's what can we do better, different, cheaper, faster. We're not looking at the issues that happened and placing blame or anything like that at that time. That's for a different type of meeting, not this little huddle afterwards. And good to great, Collins calls them autopsies without blame, not even assigning that responsibility at that point. So how do we do this? How do we model a culture of feedback? First of all, feedback, it should be a helpful discussion that moves people forward. Specificity is important here, whether affirmative or corrective in nature. Vague does not work, right? Feedback would not be considered that sucked, right? It might be true, but it doesn't provide the forward motion that we're looking for. Or, on the other side, feedback is not, that was awesome, right? Again, that might be true, but it doesn't give the specificity of what you would like to see repeated again. So when giving feedback, a good thing to remember is if you don't address it, you endorse it. This is especially true on the negative side of feedback. If something can be better, or if something is just way off from where you're going as a vision and mission. If you don't address it, that's an actual endorsement to that person because they think they did the right thing and everything was perfect if they never received that feedback from you. Feedback, it doesn't require a meeting, nor does it have to be this big event. You can readily incorporate feedback into any conversation. You just have to be intentional about it. Some great strategies or questions to use in giving feedback. Ask leading questions like, I sounded blank, didn't I? Like you fill in that word. I sounded whatever it may be. I sounded disingenuous. Did I sound disingenuous when I was talking about that? I felt disingenuous. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that, you know? So have that conversation. Or I know I can whatever. Ask those leading questions when wanting to receive feedback. Or what could I or what could we have done better? Do you have any food for thought or tips or ideas or advice? I really welcome and need your total honesty on this. When you start a conversation and receiving feedback with that, you are giving them permission to give you that honest feedback. So accept it and give them the permission to do that. Maybe it's what's one thing I could do better to support or assist you? Or this one, I hate asking this one. What do I do that makes your job harder? I hate asking that question, but man, it's a good question to ask. Give a heads up more. Like, be thinking about this, and then let's circle back around in a couple days or tomorrow, and let's talk about it. So you're giving them a heads up. Use the power of a follow-up request for feedback. Like, did any thoughts come to mind since our earlier conversation about whatever? But build that relational capacity and trust with people so they feel safer to share good, honest feedback with you. But here's the big point of this. Don't get defensive. Even if the feedback that you're receiving is poorly delivered or wrongly delivered, don't get defensive. Just accept it because you've given them permission. You want that feedback. It might be hard to swallow. It usually is hard to swallow, but don't get defensive because then that will create a culture of not giving you good, honest feedback, which is what we want to do. Remember, if you don't address it, you endorse it. So who do you need to have a conversation with in the next 10 days that will help you and your team? Feedback is critical across the board. And then lastly, create a culture of personal growth. Create a culture of personal growth. Your attitude towards personal growth will drive the culture of your organization. Is growth something you actively seek? Is it something you put up with? Or is it something you're not interested in at all? How you answer that has a direct impact on how your team approaches growth as well. Simply put, growth is a personal responsibility. And there's a three-step approach to personal growth, which is know it, own it, and grow it. Know it. If we don't know what we need to grow in, then it's a non-starter. You're not gonna know. You're not gonna grow. So know it. If you don't know it, you can't address it. So get some feedback. That means If you don't know where you need to grow, that means you're not developing that culture of feedback that you need. So go back and get some feedback. And we're like G.I. Joe here. Knowing is only half the battle, right? It's not enough. So once you know it, then you have to own it. A big reason organizations fail is because leaders fail to take responsibility. And every failure, it tells a story. There's 4 types of people on this, on owning it, whether they're going to own it or not. First of all, you have people who are accusers, right? Once something's happened, whatever the issue is, rather than owning it, they're going to accuse someone else. It's somebody else's fault. No matter what you say, they're like Teflon. Nothing will stick to them, right? So they're the accusers. Or there's the second type, the excuser. They blame some reason, not a person, but there's always an excuse why it didn't happen. They're not owning it. Thirdly, it is a loser. They're just there because they're without hope already. They believe they're out of options. They can't grow. No one's training them. They don't know what to do, so they've stopped even trying to grow. What we're looking for is this 4th type of person, the chooser. So the accuser, the excuser, the loser, and the chooser. They know there's an option. They're going to own it. They know they don't have to be a victim of their past, and they can't talk their way out of a problem that they have behaved themselves into because they're choosing to own it. That's who we're looking for. That's who we want our staff to be, because when they choose to own it, then they're going to grow it. They're going to address it. And when we do that, small changes over time yield massive results. So these are the 5 areas to create a desirable culture that will help you recruit, retain, and maintain staff in your church. Let's wrap up today by thinking about some words that describe your best boss that you've ever had. Somebody give me a word that would describe your best boss.
Approachable.
Approachable, good. What's another one?
Caring.
Caring, I love it. What else?
Encouragement.
Yes, encouraging, good.
Teacher.
Yeah,
Learn from.
very good.
Leader.
Yeah,
Good listener.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, here's the deal. We all know what a desirable culture looks like because it looks like those best bosses that we've ever had, right? And when it just takes a little bit of work in our own culture to get there, and the work is worth it because a little work every day, oh, there it is, a little work every day creates a desirable culture that it will attract and retain the best. That's all I got for you guys today.
So good.
I really appreciate you coming here. Now you know why I wanted to retitle this to Everything I Know I'm Supposed to Do, but I'm not, right? It's a gut check. This was a gut check for me for sure on putting this together. But we all want the same thing. And that's the beauty of GCC. We can pick up the phone, shoot a text, whatever, to our brothers, to our sisters, and get that encouragement, get those questions answered. And we're all going through the same struggles at different times, different seasons. But it's such a blessing to be a part of all of that. Let me pray for all of you before we go. Father, we love you. Oh, we thank you for the work that you're doing throughout the nation, throughout this world. Lord, we can't do this on our own. We need you every day. Lord, as everyone leaves this place and looks at all the issues and all the things that are out there, Lord, would you give us the strength and the courage to have those difficult conversations, to put our best foot forward, all for your glory, Lord, not for us, not so that we can say, look what we have grown, look what we have become, look what all that we're doing. No, none of that, Lord, but so that we can increase the fame of your name, because we know it is all you, it is all your work, and without you we cannot do it, and we don't even want to try to do it. So Lord, would you be with us as we go out? We love you. We pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right.